All right, and we're live on Energy Superheroes. Today we have Alp Bora, and he's calling us today from Chicago. Alp is a mining industry expert, a speaker, an author, a coach, and he is running a think tank called Alp Bora and Company, focused on influencing the mining industry by promoting a sustainability culture. Alp, welcome to the podcast today.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for having me.
It's really great to have you. So we've been trying to get you on for a while. I know. Appreciate your patience. It's been tough syncing up schedules, but we're excited to have you on. And mining is a topic that I really want to learn more about. It's has such a huge influence on the global energy industry and the economy in general. Tell us about your work in influencing the mining industry.
Absolutely. Thanks, Peter. You're right. Mining plays a crucial role in our economy, in pretty much everything. And I'm just happy to hear that becomes more and more of a topic of actuality. Peter, I'm a mechanical engineer who want to go in aerospace, who couldn't find a job. I studied in Montreal. Then I ended up in an internship with a mining company in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada. So when my first visit to mining is like, all right, gotta pay the rent, right? It was amazing. So I did this in 2010-ish. And as I say, it was love at first sight in the nickel refinery. It was a nickel refinery with those huge vessels, huge equipment. It felt like a Star Wars. Anyway, after that experience, I never looked back or never decided to go with the aerospace there. And I stayed in mining. So as a mechanical engineer in the mining industry, I worked 10 years for production companies or the mining companies as an operations and maintenance professional. So that's my background. I'm not, I'm not in geology. I don't do exploration. My background is production. So fast forward to 2021, the middle of pandemic, I left my job in production for one of the top mining companies and started my own consulting firm. So the business we are doing right now is we support mining companies to achieve operational excellence in mining. And in a nutshell, what it is, this journey, this chase for continuous improvement, for excellence in production. So we do a lot of asset management and maintenance, a lot of process optimization, and more projects in organizational redesign, competence metrics, and leadership.
And now that sounds amazing. So the first thing that comes to mind is the work that you do is hard skills. It helps the mining company make more money. I'm really curious how you dovetail in the sustainability angle,
Yeah.
and how do you get the mining company leaders thinking about sustainability as potentially a profit center as opposed to a cost center?
So just like my career in mining, the sustainability happened by accident as well. I'm a mining guy, right? I'm operations. I've been trained by the production guys, and our motto has always been keep producing. And as I mentioned at the maintenance department, actually, I gave this talk in a conference last week in Montreal. I was not the role model in terms of environmental and sustainability when I was couple like 8 years ago. With my business, as I traveled to US, a lot of mines in Canada, then I had the chance to go to Africa. I started realizing is the purpose of what we do in mining. And more I was working in the industry, more I realized, and more looking at the full value chain, I realized that the key role that we are playing in mining and the reputation that we have. Because my parents, my friends, when we have coffee in Montreal, is I'm the mining guy, right? I'm the bad guy. So I just put those things together. We have this incredibly important role we are playing in everything, in the economy, in the infrastructure, in everything. As I say, we build the world as we know in mining. Everything you touch comes from mining. So we have this incredible role that we are playing, and we have this terrible reputation that we are fighting against. So I said, how can we make the best of these two worlds? Let's create this concept around the sustainability culture in mining. That was like the tagline. and then doing research, a lot of interviews with the in and outside of the industry, we came up with this concept called AIM, AIM, awareness, investment, innovation, and mindset shift to improve the perception of the industry and also kind of push the industry to become more sustainable. So that's kind of just by working in this, traveling around, speaking to the mining people, that I realized, no, there's some work to be done. And being a big advocate for the industry, I said, let's talk about it.
No, that's great. So I'm curious, you're trying to bring together the public, right? In teaching them about a technical subject. And at the same time, you're trying to take the leaders of these companies and help them think more sustainably. So you're kind of bridging the gap, I think. And we see this in oil and gas, we see it in power generation and other industries where the public has started to pay a lot of attention. Whereas 20 years ago, maybe they didn't. We were more of a consumer society. Now we've become a society that cares about, let's say, the full life cycle of everything, um,
Correct.
which is very interesting. What would you say is the biggest challenge? First, we'll start with the industry. On the industry
Mm.
side, what's the biggest challenge with the industry and getting them to think more sustainably? And then we'll talk about what is a big
Yeah.
misconception maybe that the public has about the mining industry.
Yeah. It's going to be kind of going back to the conference I gave last week. What I'm seeing the most alarming thing and most frustrating thing for me, to be honest with you, is we have these great goals in the industry. Most corporate presentation, they have a very bold goals around decarbonization. We say by 2050 net zero. Thumbs up. It's good. We talk about the impeccable ESG. Awesome. Beautiful. What about the frontline worker guys? What about your operators, your maintainers, engineers, supervisors? A lot of them don't even know what ESG stands for. So my biggest is, how are we going to cascade down those goals? And I like to build the parallel to the safety culture in mining. We talk about sustainability culture, and I shamelessly went to check how we improve the safety in mining industry and starting to reverse engineer our way back in. If a corporate presentation says we have an amazing safety figures, all right, you say whatever you say, that's fine. But is that the reality on the floor level? Could we achieve that with just the presentation, with just VPs talking about it? No, that's not how it happened. Like, we had to bring the frontline workers and treat that communication up and down between the management, the workers, and vice versa. And that conflict that's kind of resolved in a way that's resulted in a way that we have the safety standards that we have right now, legislation, etc. So that's the link that's missing right now. Those amazing corporate goals, we need to break down into digestible, actionable goals, actions for our people in the front lines. I think that's right now the biggest. Otherwise, everybody's saying the right words, right? That the vocabulary is beautiful. The lingo, we got it perfectly. We want decarbonization, ESG. I love it. Now let's get the majority of our people in this fight for sustainability. So that's what I see in the industry as our biggest challenge. In outside industry, I keep joking about this, and this is more apparent in US than in Canada. You say mining, they hear cryptocurrency. There's like a huge gap. Like, we don't think about mining industry, and whenever we hear about mining industry, it's about something terrible that happens. Bribery, environmental issues, the social issues. So there is a big awareness gap there. And it will take people like you and me to speak up. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to brag a little bit here. Last year, I was in a journey to say, I got to talk about mining industry. I got to talk about mining industry and explain why we do what we do, but not to the mining people. Because we know what we do, Peter. Right? You know what I do. We know that, you get copper, you need this. All right. We know what we do and why we do it and why it matters. Then everybody else outside the industry, educate them. We gotta increase awareness. So last year, I gave it this TEDx talk on exactly this subject, and I named the title of the talk a little bit controversial. I said, "Why we need mining to save the environment," and it was playing exactly in that sense. How can we get the public to jump in this fight for sustainability in mining?
What I like to say is, you ask somebody, how are we going to save the planet? And they'll say something like electric vehicles. And then I'll say, where do electric vehicles come from? And they'll say Tesla. And I'll say, where does Tesla get its materials from? And then they'll start to think. And eventually, a lot of these materials, especially for batteries, a lot of it comes back to mining, which is very interesting. And it's starting to be new types of materials as well.
Yeah,
You mentioned copper. And of course, I think if you ask the average person what gets mined the most, they would probably say gold.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
whenever you say mine, like you said, Bitcoin, that's true. Gold is another one people think, and it's kind of that same mentality of gold mine, Bitcoin mine. They're thinking of something that you pull up that's valuable. But then there's so many other things that are valuable in today's economy that is coming from the mining industry. So maybe touch on sort of the awareness around electric vehicles. What are some of the new materials that you're seeing increased demand in the
Yeah,
mining industry? And, the role that mining plays in electrification, which is a
absolutely.
key element of decarbonization.
So I give this talk in universities, Peter, and this is how I start. Usually, that's my book is how clean your Tesla is really like. And when you remove the frame, so which is the steel and aluminum, electric vehicle requires up to 6 times more metal than metals. And it's just in terms of copper, depending on the what kind of battery technology you are using. You need graphite, nickel, lithium, all that. And even in the electric vehicle, the technologies we are seeing a push into LFP batteries, lithium phosphate, iron phosphate batteries, which is different than the nickel, manganese, cobalt, NMC. Main difference is the around the famous mineral called cobalt, and I'm sure you heard about it. It's coming the 65% of the global reserves are from DRC, and we've seen a couple videos on how artisanal mining is being done there. So in order to get away from the NMC, the nickel, manganese, cobalt technology, more and more we are seeing this push toward the lithium iron phosphate, which has no cobalt in it. Everything I just mentioned, all those acronyms requires mining, of course, and the level of amount that requires is exponential. It is kind of including the renewable energy, so solar panels and the wind turbines of those type of mine industries. We're gonna need more metals that we have mined throughout the history of humanity. So in the next 30, 35 years to fully decarbonize. So I don't know if people realize that, and this kind of mentioned this in universities, and we have like a oh shit moment. Okay, well, what does that mean now? Are we gonna able to achieve that? Well, there are a couple of things that needs to be done. First, let's first understand if this fight for sustainable for decarbonization, your Tesla, is it really that clean? How are you getting those materials? Are they being sourced responsibly? Right? But also the sheer amount of materials we gonna need to fully decarbonize. We just don't talk about it.
No question. And one element of that, of course, is how is the mining equipment powered? Because by definition, if we have to dig a lot more to get a lot more materials, that's more consumption and it requires more emissions unless we're able to decarbonize the actual mining equipment. So I'm like a broken record on hydrogen. I'm always talking about hydrogen because if you're going to use mining equipment, you might disagree with me on this, but I feel like electrified mining equipment, it's too long of a charge time, at least today. And this mining equipment needs to be operating pretty much all the time. So, and it's very expensive. So unless you had multiple trucks that we're rotating through. I don't know if electric is the best choice. It may need to be hydrogen, but then how are you going to get the hydrogen to the mine? It's in a remote location.
I was gonna ask the
You need to be
question.
generating this remotely with wind and solar. I do think that's one of the benefits of hydrogen is you can generate it remotely. But then we're also seeing a lot of these trucks, the vehicle manufacturers are going to a liquid on board type of a solution because it's much more energy dense. And then we've also heard things like ammonia. So
Yeah.
all these different options for decarbonizing remote equipment, I think are going to play a huge role if we really want to be net zero, because it's going to be all the new metals to do electrification. We've got to be able to keep the mining operations decarbonized, and they'll play an increasing role in getting to net zero as we mine more materials.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for the hydrogen. That was my question. And this is still my question. Like, how are we going to bring them to the mine sites? So distribution is one of the challenge, I think. And the other thing, Peter, is that the momentum that we have created around the electrification of the mobile equipment, underground, open pits, it's coming, right? It's like the train got its momentum and it's going it's almost getting full speed. And the Caterpillar, Komatsu, all the OEMs are really drank the Kool-Aid and they are going all guns blazing in that direction. So coming up with different technologies, gonna have to fight against that. Now, I'm not sold on the electrification, knowing how much material goes into that. And sometimes I ask the question: is this the meaning of mining to provide the raw materials for these OEMs to sell more cars? No, is this the? And the thing is, there's the first generation that we're gonna spend all these materials on. Then you're gonna have second generation, right? Because those renewable energies, solar panels, wind turbines, they're gonna stop working. You're gonna have to replace them, which brings to the recycling subject to the equation. And we are nowhere near yet anywhere we should be on how to recycle, how best recycle the most out of it.
Yeah, that's an unbelievable thing. Again, it's like you say, I come from the investment community and we have our buzzwords really down pat. Everyone is saying circular economy. It's easier said than done.
My God, yes.
I'm thinking of a more simple industry, plastics, that we've been recycling for a long time. I mean, we put plastics out in our recycle bins here. I've been doing it since I was a kid, I think. And yet recycled plastics still don't provide the same quality of resin as virgin plastics after all this time of trying to make it better.
Yeah.
And the price is significantly higher than virgin plastics. And the quality is lower. And there's this supply shortage of recycled material. And this is after decades of trying to get recycling right.
Plastic.
Now you're talking about a whole new type of recycling for batteries or metals
Yep.
or other types of critical materials. This is a huge area. And the only, I think, realistic stat I've seen is McKinsey says real net zero probably takes, the number was about 400 and something trillion dollars. That may be about right.
Yeah.
Take a lot in so many segments to get to net zero. I'm an optimist. I think we can do it because I'm a believer in technology that can leapfrog what came before, but it's going to take everybody and a lot of smart people.
And what about the nuclear, Peter?
I'm a big believer in small modular nuclear reactors. I think nuclear technology has come so far, and I know multiple companies. I won't mention specifics, but my previous company, a company called Power Phase, one of the engineers there has moved over to a small modular nuclear company that holds a lot of promise. There's a nuclear company here locally in Jupiter, Florida, that is really innovative and looking at various advanced technologies. Nuclear to hydrogen is starting to become interesting. It's a way to, generate hydrogen maybe when not so much electricity is needed. But yeah, I really like nuclear. I think it's safe, cost effective, and the advances are coming. The biggest challenge with nuclear is getting the government out of the way in terms of permitting new nuclear. So I think if we could have a sort of a moonshot around nuclear, I think that is one of those technologies that could leapfrog and make a huge difference. What do
Absolutely agree. I,
what
I
do you
am I'm
think?
a big believer in nuclear as well. Again, going back to the reputation and the perception plays a big role. There's a must be reason for the politics getting into way, right? It's the governments. And we has had the same problem around mining, right? It takes 10 to 15 years to start a mine from scratch if you get the permitting. If you get the permitting. So there's of course that goes into there are several layers for that reasons where we are. But nuclear, I think it's the main reason is that we have this terrible reputation. Again, it's you speak about that, they say, "Oh no, it's evil." But is it though? You want your the decarbonization though in terms of cheap, renewable, clean energy. Well, not renewable, but clean energy. You can get better than that.
I couldn't agree more. And the amount of time that nuclear plants can last without having to be sort of reconditioned, repurposed. I think you hit the nail on the head because a lot of people call wind and solar renewable. But you have to remember that these panels wear out, they have to be replaced. Wind turbines wear out, they have to be replaced. The materials for them come from somewhere. So engineers know this intuitively because the laws of thermodynamics and other things that you can't just create something out of nothing. But unfortunately, I think we and across the energy industry are challenged in our public relations capabilities.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
talk a little about that. Like, how do we get better at throughout the energy industry and in the mining industry in particular of being better at public relations and showing the public the value that we bring?
I'll speak about mining. I can speak about the nuclear, but I can speak about mining. We don't like making waves. We like to operate in our corner. We do our stuff. Everybody makes money, goods, buy the book. There's so many amazing things that are done by the mining companies. Like I'm looking at Glencore, Vale, Rio Tinto, Anglo American, really new ones. Some incredible innovation technologies they are deploying and really changing the way we mine. The future of mining is being transformed by these guys. I was in Africa, in Madagascar, in Gabon, and there I see that in terms of ESG, I saw the environmental and the social impact that mining company has. It's like it could be a case study in North America. But the problem is this: we are shy to talk about these things. We suck at PR, and I'm sorry, but this is the truth. We are not good at these things. One of my saying is that the wins in industry, in mining industry, are great LinkedIn posts, but the bad stories they are in the national television. So, and we have this generational reputational issue that we have. We always portrayed mining as the bad guys. We look at a movie like Avatar, right? They are the bad guys and always been. So I think what we need to do is that really change the narrative and just be more present out there. And I have a couple ideas that I love to hear your opinion. One is that why don't we make a Super Bowl ads about why we do what we do in mining and how it impacts. I don't know. Maybe we can break down the stadium into and steel and this and that built requires for that, or how mining industry influence the economy in US and the jobs that generated, basically the positive impact that it has. Other thing was in Oscars. Oscars. Why don't we have a small 30 seconds, 45 seconds movie showing again what is mining and why it matters? Kind of we gotta break that echo chamber, that mining bubble that I call. Let's go speak to other people and talk to them about the positive impact that we have in the world.
No, absolutely. I would show, for example, you could show the EVs, you could show different uses of the products that mining makes, and you could just put on the bottom. So you show a very emotional video that's people using these products, and then in the bottom just put brought to you by the mining industry, right? It's like
Uh,
really showing where this came from, all these materials.
so I think that's one way to make an impact. Let's just talk to non-mining people about it. And in that sense, I am in the process. By the way, just a side note, I'm Turkish. I was born and raised in Turkey, and I still have a lot of family there. We prepared 5 children's books to talk about the mining industry. Now, the target was 5 to 8 year olds, and there's 5 small stories. And we talk about what's open pit mining, what is underground mining. Then we go the Star Wars, we go asteroid mining, undersea mining, and urban mining, which is recycling. So those are the 5 subjects. And the goal was that to break down everything that's been transferred previously, the way we do mining, let's show them the technology that we are using. Let's show them why we need these materials. So in each chapter, in each story, we'll talk about copper, for example. Okay, copper, why do we need it? How it is mined, and why this material matters, and how it is sourced. And in the process, we show them the technology that we are using. So that's kind of one initiative that's in progress. The books will be published end of this year, and my goal is to bring them to Canada and US, translate them in English, and publish them in North America. That purpose, let's kind of change the narrative, and we can take an active role in that.
I think that's a great use. And it starts with early childhood education. I do think that increasingly industries should take the bull by the horns, so to speak, in terms of education, not just early childhood, but actually vocational training, because we see in this country and throughout the US, there's an enormous gap in vocational training where people can get out of high school and then go into an apprenticeship type of a program and then earn a very good income. And I think there's a huge opportunity in the power industry, the mining industry, across the energy industry to be able to provide this type of vocational training because there's lots of high paying jobs available in the energy industry, way above average in terms of hourly wages. And there's a huge shortage of labor right now. There's a big article written about how one of the biggest things blocking energy transition is going to be a labor shortage. And I don't know if we can wait for the universities to come around to it because they seem to like to teach, let's say, a lot of somewhat less than useful topics. I think industries can sort of take control, and especially because of these media that we have now, the ability to use Zoom and other sort of virtual means, and everybody, the younger generation, they're 100% technical proficiency, ability to use computers, which is nice. So that I think that's a game changer in terms of educating the next generation. And it's killing two birds with one stone because it's public relations, but it's also solving the labor shortage problem at the same time.
So 2 things that I'm doing right now, Peter, and I love what you said there. We gotta talk about it, right? And I really believe that the mining companies and oil sand companies in Canada did that. 6, 7 oil sand producers got together and they made this campaign to talk about the oil sands in Alberta region. It has a terrible reputation as well in Canada, just FYI. I had the same idea. Why don't we do something similar? So my second company, it's called Mining is the Future. And this kind of the idea was that books will be published under that brand, Mining is the Future. And the next level would be let's transform those books into stories, videos. Why don't we do the virtual reality, augmented reality, and bring them to high school and show how mining it's really happening? Let's show them how it is to work in an aluminum smelter, how it is to work in an underground gold mine. It kind of break that barrier. So those are the initiatives, but the industry needs to step up. Those mining companies say that, hey, everybody's complaining about the shortage of people, but then what are we doing it? So that I don't think that incremental things gonna help. I think we need to be a bit more aggressive into changing the narrative around these things. I mean, I put it out there in LinkedIn. Whichever university wants to talk about mining pro bono, I go and talk to them. I went to McGill, go to Concordia, in June, let's talk about mining with these people, this young generation, and let's tell them again what we do and why we do it and how it matters.
No, that's awesome. And I'll give a plug out to my favorite university these days, which is the University of Houston. They're doing amazing work in energy transition.
Cool.
And so they definitely should be thinking about mining as well if they're not already. And, it's more of a oil and gas culture down there. But that being said, we're seeing a lot of activity in and around Houston where a lot of companies are moving and it's turning into like this innovation ecosystem hub, almost like the Silicon Valley of energy transition, if you will.
Yeah.
So even though I sit in Florida, I always have to give a plug for University of Houston.
Yeah. I think we're on the same boat with those guys. I never really was consider myself an oil and gas guy because I never work in that industry, but I think we're on the same boat. And quote Ben Franklin on this, if we don't hang together, we're gonna hang separately. I think, we may wanna just combine the efforts to just change the narrative around there, out there.
That's right. And in the end, what attracted me to the energy industry in the first place, I think can be attractive to a lot of people. I don't have an engineering background and my degree's in economics and I was always more finance focused. And then I was in digital media in that industry.
Mm,
I went through the internet age of the late 90s and all that time, started companies back then. But then I really was attracted to the energy industry. And I'll have to say it was President Obama who was speaking about I don't know if he used the words energy transition, but how the energy of the future would be so different. And what appealed to me about it is the ability to impact people's everyday lives in a positive way. I was sort of tired of trying to figure out the best way to get people to click on something, which
yeah, yeah,
it's like nothing wrong with the advertising, but
yeah.
can be a little bit, okay, you don't feel like you're making such a big difference. But in the energy sector, mining included, and all these industries, it has a huge visceral effect on people's lives. And I love the movie Meet the Robinsons. I always think one
Mm.
of these days we're going to get to that kind of city where we have flying cars and all these amazing technologies. And hopefully that city is green and beautiful and everybody can walk around and, just live an enjoyable life. But inside of all that stuff are materials. And where did they come from? A lot of them came from mining. So it's like, how do we get to that place? We'd all love to think that the materials just floated in from, outer space or something, but we actually have to do a lot of work to get them.
And if you care about, and this is my message in universities, if you care about it, please join the industry because we need more people who care about this thing so we can change the way we do. I mean, I'm very hopeful that I'm an older millennial and we're gonna be in this leadership positions sooner than later because the old business doesn't work. Some of your audience may not may disagree with me, but like we gotta change the way we did business, where we say, we're in the business to make money. In a conference, in mining conference, one of the executives said that, and it blew my mind. Said, I mean, you don't go in business to lose money, but that's not why you are in business, especially not in mining. That's not your purpose, guys. Come on, And this is probably the reason that we are in a situation that we are right now with this reputational damage we have. So I'm really, my message is, if you want to change things, if you want to fix the industry, quote unquote, join the industry. That's going to be the best way to do it versus screaming, shouting it on the bridge, mining is evil. You're going to have more chance to do this. And say, as a cherry on top, it pays very well as well. Just
There's
saying.
There's no doubt about, and I know some of the activists are paid, but trust us, the energy industry pays better than being an activist, and you can actually accomplish something on the positive side. Again, nothing wrong with activism. I do think it plays a role, but at some point, once you have everyone's attention, which I think the activism has done the role, done the job of getting people's attention. Now people are paying attention,
Yeah.
but that isn't enough. We have to now advance things and move things forward. And that's hard work. It takes years. It takes rolling up your sleeves. And at the end of the day, it's so much more rewarding to actually build something and accomplish something than it is to just be a critic. My high school quote was from Teddy Roosevelt. It's not the critic who counts. I won't go through the whole quote because it's long, but the bottom line is get into the arena, make something happen, and try to build something that matters for the future as opposed to just criticizing.
Love it. I love it. Thanks for that share. I love it.
Thanks, man. Well, Al, it's really been a pleasure having you today. Before we go, though, how can people find you?
One-stop shop. It's my website, Alp Bora Inc. Inc. alpbora.com. And all the links to the LinkedIn, to my book that published in February this year, link to my TEDx talk, everything is in one stop, one website.
Very good. It's alpborainc.com. Make sure you guys check it out. And, be sure to check us out on YouTube, subscribe to Energy.Media. Make sure that you look me up on LinkedIn. I'm under Peter Perry and Spotify. I can't forget that. Energy Superheroes. I didn't used to do these plugs, but I was told they work. So I'm going to start doing these plugs at the end of every podcast. And Alp, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show today. If you guys want to know more about mining and how to get involved in the industry, make sure you visit alpborainc.com. Thank you, Alp, for being on.
Thanks, Peter.